Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I am your host, Neal Howard, for this Health Suppliers segment. Our guest in studio is Dr. Henry Anhalt, Chief Medical Officer with T1D Exchange, the Type 1 Diabetes Exchange, a nonprofit organization that's fostering collaboration among patients, physicians, researchers, and industry in order to speed discovery of better therapies for Type 1 diabetes. Hello and welcome, Dr. Anhalt.
Thanks so much for having me on the show, Neal.
The T1D Exchange, you are the Chief Medical Officer. How long has the Type 1 Diabetes Exchange been in existence?
The T1D Exchange, Neal, has been in existence for approximately 6 years, and I've had the pleasure of serving as their Chief Medical Officer for just about a year now.
Okay. In reading some of your information, the exchange is sort of a very unique ecosystem. Explain how an ecosystem of T1D diabetes clinicians, researchers, patients, and families all coexist. How does that happen?
You know, Neal, since 1921, when insulin was discovered, unfortunately, we've made some pretty great advances in development of technology and drugs. However, insulin remains the mainstay of therapy. Okay. And so we've been unable to cure this disease. And with that recognition, it was important to understand the gaps that exist around research and advancing therapies that could inch us a bit closer to a cure. And while that's going on, understand the unmet needs that patients have by not only doing clinical research, but by listening to the voices of patients, which drives everything that we do with T1D Exchange. So if you would indulge me, I'll speak to a couple of programs that we have at the T1D Exchange.
Absolutely.
And through those examples, perhaps highlight how it is that we are filling that gap.
Excellent.
Okay, so let's take a look first at our clinical trial network. Our clinical trial network exists of approximately 75 sites that have expertise and care for individuals with type 1 diabetes, both adult and pediatric, and are in a variety of different environments, including private practice and institutions. These sites serve under a master service agreement to efficiently recruit and execute on clinical trials. You know, one of the biggest obstacles in engaging in clinical research is site identification, and there are companies called clinical research organizations that do that. However, having a master service agreement with 75 qualified sites who have engaged in clinical research that we can tap into allows us to efficiently identify those sites. But furthermore, recruitment of patients remains an obstacle. So if I've got a great idea and I'd like to study patients, but I only have 10 or 15 patients with the kind of problem that I'm trying to address, I'm stuck at being able to complete that kind of research. So we have a patient registry with over 27,000 well-characterized individuals with type 1 diabetes that have allowed us to have access to their contact information. So we know lots of information about these folks. We have a way of contacting them, and we become trusted custodians of their contact information. So if we go back to the situation of the physician who has an idea but can't efficiently execute because he doesn't have enough patients or doesn't have enough support of additional sites, here we have the ability through our T1D Exchange to both identify sites that are qualified and quickly recruit because we have the contact information and are trusted custodians of that information with patients willing to participate in research and allowing us to reach out to them.
How do researchers get involved? I mean, what's the criteria for being able to take advantage of the exchange?
So there are two issues I think that are important to highlight, Neal. The first is, how does a site become a T1D Exchange clinical trial site. And we've had, as I mentioned, 75 sites that are carefully vetted by their previous history of engaging in clinical research, their competencies around having the facilities to engage in clinical research, and having the patient population that will allow them to execute on those clinical trials. So becoming a clinical trial site, there is a process of vetting and ensuring that there are high-quality sites capable of, in fact, engaging. Okay. But I think, in addition, we work with scientists, clinicians, industry, and other stakeholders who are interested in engaging with us to do clinical research. And for those, we carefully vet each and every study to ensure that it's aligned with our mission and strategy of creating a life that's better for people with type 1 diabetes, and to ensure that the kinds of studies that we do will ultimately, hopefully, lead to transformative interventions and improvement in the lives of those people.
Does the efficiency of your model include a cost-effective aspect? Or are we talking better affordability as well as speedier research?
Well, when it comes to cost-effectiveness, most certainly working with the T1D Exchange to execute on clinical trials is a cost-effective way to do studies. In fact, a good use case of this is a company called Leucemia. Leucemia it is a Canadian company that had a novel and transformative treatment that is called rescue glucagon. And for people with type 1 diabetes, they are at risk 24/7 of experiencing a life-threatening low blood sugar reaction that can result in serious complications up to and including death. They had this compound, but they didn't have the resources to be able to do the clinical trials, to identify the sites, recruit the patients, to do it at relatively low cost, and to bring that product to a stage of development that would make it appropriate for the FDA and other regulators to approve the product for use. And in record-breaking speed, we were able to work with that team, recognizing the transformative nature of this intervention, work with that team from protocol development until ultimately acquisition by Eli Lilly to further develop and hopefully commercialize this product within 18 months. Unheard of in today's drug development environment. So from that standpoint, efficiency and cost effectiveness for Leucemia was clear, and the benefit to the patients for this transformative therapy was also quite clear. Now, the data that we generate, we hope, also provides fuel, or if you will, evidence that the kinds of therapies that we study will have ultimately a reduction in complications that require hospitalizations, that increase the cost of healthcare delivery today. So we look at health resource utilization and health economics when it's appropriate in certain studies.
What percentage would you say of your patient database consists of pediatric patients? Is that it?
So we have two databases, Neal, that I think are important to highlight. One is the clinical trial registry that I've spent some time discussing with you up until this point. And the age spans from a year of age to over 80 years, with the duration of diabetes anywhere from a year to greater than 40 years. It's a very rich population of individuals, and we have slightly more individuals with type 1 in the pediatric age group, than we do in the adult age group. But we also have a separate cohort and database called GLUE, and this community is a community that we recruit by word of mouth directly and through social media. That there is no clinic registry per se, but these are individuals who come to us again as trusted custodians of their information that we study, we generate theories and hypotheses that we test by deploying questions of the day that lead us to understand the unmet needs, help drive research, and create markets for smaller companies to seek solutions that these patients raise. And that patient population, the demographics are a bit different, with an average age being older and closer to the third to fourth or fourth to fifth decade.
Now, where can our listeners go online and get more information about the T1D Exchange?
Well, www.t1dexchange.org, or I can direct people for information on GLUE, our patient support community and engagement platform and clinical research tool, at www.myglu.org.
Thank you so much. You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard, and we've been in studio talking with Dr. Henry Anhalt, pediatric endocrinologist and chief medical officer of the T1D Exchange, a nonprofit that fosters a model of collaboration between researchers, physicians, patients, and industry as well in the fight against T1D. It's been great having you here with us today, Doctor.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Neal.
Thank you. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and also at hpr.fm, and you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes.